if all is good. I didn't see Will's face, so I panicked a bit.
Hello guys. I'm just trying to finish the figuring out the streaming things, and I will come back. Just give me like 2 minutes.
Sure, sure.
Yeah, hello guys. Mr. Will, did you make sure about your video cam? Is it work or not?
Yeah,
Great.
I'm
Yeah, I'm ready now to put us on live. So
all right.
is it okay? So starting webinar now. So when we start in webinar, the attendees they will start showing on the right side of the chatting, and
Okay.
then you'll be on the control after that.
Okay.
Okay.
Should I start with the video first and then go into the deck, the presentation, or just start with presentation?
Yeah. Okay.
There's a question.
Do you have any question now?
Should I start just addressing the camera like this, or should I just go into the presentation?
As you like. If you want to start with the video or start the presentation directly.
Sure.
So we are ready now.
Great. Yeah, I'm ready whenever.
Okay. Here we go.
Camera like this.
As you like. Let's start.
Hi, everyone. I think we've got a pretty nice group of attendees already in here. We might get going. Just a quick hello from myself. My name is Will Hudson. I'm the founder and CEO of LMTD. We're going to be talking today about product market fit. These are the basics. And it'll be a great workshop. Will probably last about 45 minutes. And then save your questions, maybe ask them in the chat. And after that, we'll go through some questions for the last 10, 15 minutes. Should be a great time. All right, I think we have everybody here. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. Great. All right, presentation mode. View. I'm trying to go full screen for you. Pause share. All right, I am screen sharing. Great. All right, so a little bit about myself. I'm Will. I'm the CEO of LMTD. I'm also its founder. I'm a proud dad of a couple great girls, all under the age of 5. A lot of fun here in our household in Dubai with my wife. I've spent the better part of 15 years helping startups and SMEs try to grow, try to scale their businesses. So today we're going to talk about what is product market fit. What's product market fit anyways? So first, let's say what it's not. Product market fit, it's a, it's always a discrete big bang event. No, it's not. It's generally a lot of little tweaks. It's also patently obvious. No, not also patently obvious. And I'll show you some examples of that. Once you achieve product market fit, you can't lose it. Also false. We're going to talk a little bit about moats and competition. And then finally, once you have product market fit, you don't have to sweat the competition as well. All false. This was compliments of Ben Horowitz from Andreessen Horowitz. So have you thought about this? Have you thought about your business? Have you thought about every side of it in terms of who you're competing with, in terms of, who your actual customers are, and kind of the back and forth of it? A lot of times people don't realize they might have two-sided markets. So B2B to C, for instance, we're going to talk through some of that. But really try to be objective. And if you don't know, ask your customers. We'll dig into that as well. Because the fact is, your narrative is reality. What you are going into the market, what you are selling your customers, what you are walking people through, this is actually what becomes the concrete reality of your business. And it's especially true to people that will promote you or invest in you. Remember that. So one example of a company that maybe didn't know what their business was when they started, it took them a while to find product market fit, is the Climate Corporation. They built world-class technology and software to help farmers. Now, a couple of former big tech company guys selling software to farmers to try to change the world sounds novel, it sounds nice. But in reality, farmers were terrible customers of software. They didn't buy software often. They knew how to buy seeds. They didn't buy, software often. They knew how to buy equipment. So what happened is they pivoted. They figured out it was easier, because their technology was so good and so effective, it was easier to sell insurance to those farmers, right? And so what they ended up doing was saying, look, as long as you install and run our software, we're going to sell insurance against your crop yields and against what's going to happen. And for them, that was a much bigger market opportunity. And they ended up selling to Monsanto for $1 billion. Now, you can imagine, as an entrepreneur, a big thing that drives you is your confidence. It's your ego. It's your self-belief, your desire to prove everybody wrong. But in this instance, they couldn't have been more wrong. It had nothing to do about selling software and everything to do about finding the edge that software gave them. And a lot of times, if you're a software company, if you're listening to this, you're in essence, especially in emerging markets, ensuring that process. Your software is removing risk or hedging the human element to a lot of business processes. Don't forget that. Another example is the weather company. And I love this example because growing up in the United States, and especially in Florida and California, the weather is such a big part of what people do. And so what happened? People tuned in every day to hurricanes, to earthquakes. They checked their phones. They wanted to know what was going on. It ended up selling to Comcast for over $3 billion. And most of the value they felt at the time was in the cable channel. But in reality, the value was in the data, the digital, and the mobile side of the business. They spun just that off alone for $2 billion. So they basically paid back their entire investment inside of a decade. They sold that to IBM. And it's a great example of a business's value not sitting where you think it is. And this is important when you look at product market fit, because product market fit isn't your overall approach necessarily. If you look at legacy brands like Starbucks might have product market fit in 3 or 4 different huge types of stores they have, but they might not have product market fit in other ways, especially in bigger markets like the West. Delivery is not happening. Even though we know delivery is happening here in the emerging markets, it's not happening back in the West. So you could argue that big companies go through this channel by channel, sector by sector, product by product within their entire offering, not just in their business model. And a good example, and a good way to look through this lens is your market stage, or rather your market and your stage, to help you determine it all. So a lot of folks in the startup world have seen this. You've got the peak of inflated expectations, trough delusion. It's an interesting idea when you're sitting in markets that have a pretty wild amount of early adopters. But if you're in an emerging market, you probably don't have that benefit, right? You generally will have a scenario where one day no one is buying, the next day everyone wants it. And there's some clear examples of this. And I think it's important to frame this positioning up when you look at product market fit, because you might be on the edge of a consumer trend and not know it. And so even if you, as we said earlier, to the Ben Horowitz quote, you might have it today, you won't have it tomorrow. If you have it today, or if you don't have it today, you might have it tomorrow. you need to look at these consumer and business trends in order to see what's driving it. An example of this is when I moved to the Middle East, 2012. And there's probably some people here watching this saying, of course, BBM, BlackBerry. That was without a doubt the market leader. I can't tell you how many people I met that said, there is no way you will be able to get business done if you are not on BBM. It is the way to work with people that get stuff done. But literally within a year, Android had started to creep in and take a ton of market share. And there was a new app called WhatsApp. And I watched the market between 13 and 15 and saw BBM's market share in literally some months double-digit declines. It was a spectacular drop. And so it's important to see when you go back and you look at this change in how your market and stage determine your product market fit could change. You might say product market fit is defined in a different way to you at different points in this. You might say profit is a big deal of product market fit at the start. And then later on, what you're selling, you might say, I don't care about profit at all. I want market share. I'll give you some examples of that later. So Eric Ries, author of The Lean Startup, pretty prolific guy in the startup community, said, the moment when a startup finally finds a widespread set of customers that resonate with its product, that's product market fit. That's his definition. So, before we can talk about widespread, I want to give you a way to look at this. And I think you can do this channel by channel to see what makes sense. Now, this is a startup I mentor, and they have B2C and B2B business lines. And I have to kind of block out some details just so, out of discretion. And this is their profitability this year. And this is a total accident because of COVID. But they realized that B2C wasn't a channel for them at all. And every investor they spoke to, every mentor, me included at some points, although I'm a big fan of B2B businesses, encouraged them to go after B2C revenue as a hedge. But look what happened as they lost their B2C channel, their gross profit margin bumped up and they became profitable when they just focused on B2B. It's a really interesting way to help you go to market, and it's a great way to test product market fit. And there's probably companies that went to market with a B2B product that looked B2C. And a good example is Kareem. So their go-to-market was almost exclusively through management consulting firms in the UAE. In fact, there's a big reason why the second city behind Dubai wasn't Abu Dhabi, it was Riyadh, because they needed to cater to those management consulting firms. So as the consultants would go around town, the two founders noticed that they were having to capture receipts, file receipts, try to get paid back for their trips to their clients. And Kareem said, let's just automate that and we'll capture the market and we'll use that as our wedge to go to market. Really great example of using B2B as a go-to-market, which could at some point be B2C. You could argue they had product market fit with their B2B product, but not with their B2C product. Important distinction. So remember, your market and your stage determine all of this. So even though you don't have a lot of this trough of delusionment and everything in emerging markets, you can drive adoption really quickly. And that's one of the great benefits of emerging markets is they really chase trends, and you've got a huge population under the age, depending on the market, under the age of 30, under the age of 35, oftentimes the majority of the population. And that's also really beneficial to drive early adoption. So let's start with the customer. As we're talking through product market fit, as we're talking through how do you dial in exactly what you're offering and customizing it, there are a myriad of ways to do that. And I want to focus initially on B2B. Now, one of the huge benefits, I know I'm talking a lot about emerging markets. This is my specialty. I've been out of the US for almost 10 years now. Even when I was in the US, I often did global sales, global campaigns for ad agencies, and previously with the entertainment studio, Walt Disney, that I worked with. And so a lot of opportunity exists in that you can very quickly talk with C-level executives. This is not this is a huge advantage that you need to flex if you are a startup or you're a business looking for product market fit, because there is a great chance in an emerging market you can get access to execs. And it's not that in Europe and the West and even in larger, more established markets in Asia, you can't. It's that middle management is much more established. That's where the trough of disillusionment comes in because you drive a lot of adoption, people beat the product up, then it kind of gets the adoption it needs and it scales. In emerging markets, you don't have as entrenched middle managers a lot of times with B2B. And you've got a great opportunity just by even building sales roles and go-to-market roles around procurement. That's a huge gatekeeper in emerging markets. You can also literally go up and find the largest problems that these enterprises and businesses need to solve, and you can reverse engineer solutions for them. And also, in a lot of times in B2B, if you're selling to large corporates, you don't have a direct competitor. You might have indirect competitors. IBM or SAP might have a version of what you're selling, but you've got hands-on approach. You can outmaneuver them. And it's a really, really great way to go to market. Remember, enterprise software companies aren't necessarily competitors. So when you do see SAP say, oh, we do this, or if you see Oracle say, oh, we've got a product that might do optimization of servers the same way your product might do, that's okay. They're validation. You still have the ability to outmaneuver them. Another way to look at it is as things progress, you can take a lot of different paths. You can build a BD pipeline. So business development is kind of pre-sales. Hey, can we get a test going? Can we lower the barrier of entry and maybe find ways to work together in a sandbox environment, or maybe just with a piece of your business can we integrate with? You can talk about partnerships. Sometimes your largest customers might be your largest sales channel. They might be a great way for you to actually build a go-to-market in a new market or in a new vertical. And don't forget what business you're in. Ultimately, like we talked about earlier, a lot of times in B2B, you are hedging them. You are ensuring that that middle manager or that C-level executive looks innovative. They've protected their market. They've grown the business. So really, really, really remember that. Remember the problem you're solving, and remind your leads and customers that, hey, this is how we're going to help you solve this problem. At the end of the day, as the quote says at the bottom, and this is me kind of, playing the role. At the end of the day, we're here to remove risk for you and the entire enterprise in your upcoming product launch, your upcoming market launch. With B2C, you want to talk to as many customers as you can. It's important you get the context of their feedback. But remember, buyers don't lie, right? The sales ultimately rule, though. If they're going to buy and they're spending money and they say, I'm spending it because of XYZ, listen to them. They might be an outlier, but it's important for you to keep context around the how and the why of the transaction. Consumers will also say one thing and then they'll do another. So your analytics, your funnel, the way you track statistics, the way you deduplicate data, this is so important, especially in this region where people use VPNs and lots of other stuff. Really, really make sure you find accurate ways to be able to get your data dialed in. And just remember, in a consumer business, ultimately your customer acquisition is your best defense. Your ability to acquire and keep your customers is your way to scale. That is your moat. That is your defense. So a lot of times, and we'll go through some of these scenarios in a second, but you'll see companies that say, I can acquire customers for next to nothing. Okay, but can you keep them? Anybody can drop the price of a perfume and bring them on a beauty and perfume site. Anybody can drop the price of a sales commission of a car and be able to sell more cars. But can you keep them? What are you doing differently to keep them engaged, and how do you remarket them and own them? If you're going to loss lead, which means to give away a service or product at break even or a loss in order to acquire a user or footfall or traffic or a purchase, with the eventual goal of remarketing them and bringing them through another sales funnel that should be more lucrative. Super apps, by the way, they started with messaging and moved into fintech for a reason, right? Messaging, anybody can build a messaging app. But if your messaging app has your bank account information, if your messaging app allows you to buy a coffee without having to touch anything at the coffee store, if your messaging app has the ability to do all this other stuff, well, then that's a lot stickier, right? If you pay your utility bills or your car insurance or your messaging app, you're going to stick around. Eventually, if you can grow your audience, a lot of times consumer apps will go horizontal. And what does that mean? That means basically I'm going to go deep. Let's use the car sales example. I'm going to help people sell their cars for free. I'm not going to charge anything. But in order to sell your car through us, it's got to be your primary car, and you've got to buy your insurance for your next car through us, for instance. So you'll start getting into insurance brokerage or underwriting. You'll get into other things that might tie back to that. Consumers don't scale though, okay? Even in markets like China, right? The consumers aren't scaling, the markets are. So that's the big reason you saw Alibaba go after the markets that they did. That's why they released Alipay as quickly as possible to try to, undercut the consumer finance side, right? With WeChat, they did the reverse. They went through and they built finance products up the funnel for the receivables financing and for the trade financing. What gave you the ability to grow as well, your offense, that will become your defense. So if the main way that you set up is in order to transact something that both parties have to sign up, well, then you're going to have a lot of dead users, right? So that might become your biggest weakness is bad data. So remember, the way you grow, you have to have a hedge that's going to re-engage the users and bring them back. Market leaders in consumer businesses are paranoid and they're aggressive for a reason. You saw it. You saw when Korean would go to market, all of a sudden their competitors like Uber would freak out because they'd go on LinkedIn and they'd take 30 ads out for new roles being offered in a market that they weren't in yet, right? No desire to go there, but it got the competition spooked. They ran it up the tent pole and they started focusing on that market when they had no desire to go there. You've got to be aggressive. You got to be paranoid because your markets are very, very, very fluid. Super interesting conversations go around this, but I don't want to go too much deeper in B2C. We could talk all night. So let's talk about building your pipeline. This is a crucial way to test product market fit. You've got different stages. You've got multiple channels to test. As I like to say, scale or die. You've got to find simple ways to scale the business up. And this can be, when you say multi-stage, this can be off the back of what we get in my ad agency all the time, the request for viral videos. That could be an awareness campaign. That's top of funnel. It could be when a user says, I'm going to pick within your fintech product, I don't want your payment gateway. I want to use your service for receivables, or I want to use your service for invoice payments, right? So that's omni-channel. Which channel, what type of user, what type of customer are they going to be? And then how do you convert them and how do you bring them back? This is really, really important. So let's walk through each one of these, okay? And the easiest way to kind of split this down the middle, and this makes it easier within the B2C and the B2B conversation, is direct sales versus indirect sales. Now, obviously on the consumer side, I'm assuming that this is not a social network or a product that's given away for free. We can talk about product market fit and sales in that, but at some point revenue does generally kick in. So I think sales is an easy way to frame this. Direct sales, that's a sale versus an inbound lead, right? So somehow through a partner, through a call to action, a lead heard about you, they called, and you decided to try to commercialize that and sell them a product. On the other side, you've got indirect sales. So that could be a partner literally selling my product to a business, right? So B2B2B. And you see that a lot with insurance. If you have an insurance product, they are going to sell to a broker, and that broker is going to sell it to another business. That's B2B2B. The broker doesn't create the insurance product. It doesn't do underwriting. The business isn't buying direct from the insurance company. They've got a broker. So there's an arm's length, agreement between the two. That's B2B2B. Sales via outbound leads. This is you outbound, trying to push it forward through lists, through channels. I want you to buy something. Here's what it is. Do you want it? Another way on indirect is partners sell my product to consumers. So you might sell it to a retailer or a marketplace, and that marketplace passes on to consumers. Sales versus customer, or via customer referrals. This is a great example of what we like to say is one factor of positive churn. Positive churn is where either you've got positive referral, so that's referral in the channel, or positive churn can also be where your customer is upselling themselves. They needed 10 licenses this year, they need 100 licenses next year, and the year after they need 1,000. That's a great sign. That's positive churn, but that can also be referrals. Another way to say it is partners use my product to sell their service. This is really big in fintech. There's a lot of um, kind of new slick integrations in fintech, and gateways are reselling this product throughout fintech. So partners use it to sell their service. And then finally, sales via existing customers. And this is them literally saying, we're going to sell this for you, or customers use more of my product when they grow. And again, that's another way to say positive churn. So this is a good way to frame it up. Think about it, see where you fit. And by the way, different products you have can sit in different sides of this, but understanding direct versus indirect sales is a really easy way to frame up your product market fit conversation. I love this slide. This is kind of something I kicked around for a while. And, because startups will have two customers and they say, I know my customer. I was like, okay, well, in principle, you do know your customer. But you're guessing usually in the first 6 months, you're guessing, unless you previously worked at that business or worked with that consumer base, like you were that consumer maybe. Outside of that, you're guessing. I'm asking them what they need. I'm doing surveys. Okay, that's good. You're getting closer. I know my customer inside and out. That's much better. You can probably tell them blind spots in their business better than anybody else. As someone who owns an ad agency and works with a lot of these businesses, I'm paid a premium to oftentimes know their business or blind spots of their business better than my customers do. But I own my customer. This is the best. This is the best. If Amazon said to your company, and you might be building software, hey, we're going to remove AWS, what would happen? You'd have to switch to Azure. You don't have backups. You're all on Amazon. They kind of own you. You're stuck. So that is probably the best spot for them to know who you are, what you do, and to keep your business paid in a repeatable fashion, a repeatable manner. So when we look at product market fit in each one of these phases, I think or guess my customer is okay. Okay, you can test that out. I'm asking my customer, you can incentivize this. Hey, we love what you're doing with us. Thank you for being a one-year customer. Thank you for being in our top 10%. We would love to find out more. Can we take you on a trip? Can we take you to dinner? Is there a way we can give you 2 months free if you answer some of these questions, or you double the size of your contract? I know my customer, right? That's what we talked about earlier with going horizontal. You can bundle, you can upsell. These are really great opportunities. And I would argue if you can't start to have bundle or upsell conversations, especially in B2B, you probably don't have product market fit. If your customers aren't asking you to go horizontal, or if they're not trying to find a way to go in different verticals, you probably don't have that product market fit. And I own my customer. Again, like we talked about earlier, this is the best. They can't work without me. I am fundamental to what they do. And this is when you get into the conversations around pricing power, where you can, like Netflix, I don't know how many times they've raised the price of Netflix in the last 2 years. I'm still subscribed. I haven't even thought about that. That hasn't been a conversation in my house at all. Do we want to not have 4K Netflix? I don't know. It's now twice the price of what it was, 80, 50%. They own me, right? I am a customer kind of for life based on that. The other way to frame this, okay, we talked about the channels. We talked about, the customer and how we see the customer. Let's also frame it around what are we selling? The products, the services, the time. And this is important because when we talked about product market fit not lasting forever, you need to realize, are you replacing something, or are you in the process of being replaced? That's really what, that quote by Ben Horowitz was getting at. And there's a great book by Andy Grove, the former president of Intel. I think it's called Only the Paranoid Survive. And he really digs into, in essence, how your markets and how your customer base is always, you're either attacking or being attacked. So let's break it down in 3 ways. Products. Can this replace human capital or de-risk the enterprise? A good example, like we talked about earlier with AWS, you don't need to go buy servers around the world to have a global software startup. Services. Can this be bundled with larger margin services or leveraged? So, I run a social media agency and I'm working to help my clients across, at first 15 years ago when we were doing social, it was community management. It was almost like call center work. But we had to get in and define community management and build a real presence in community management in order to cross-sell into creative and into content, higher margin businesses. We had to have content in order to cross-sell into media and analytics and everything else and get into performance, where customers are now coming to us and saying, we've got this budget, we've got this campaign, can you be an instrumental part in growing our business, right? So you've got to be able to look at it that way. And then finally, time. Am I selling this time for more than I pay for it? You can also look at a hybrid of these three, right? So right now, this product, this service is done by people. People charge time. If I can sell this product for 1/5 of that time, right, and it never makes a mistake, people will buy the product, right? You can fire the product at any time. You don't have to go see the product at a water cooler if you lay someone off. So these are also interchangeable, and you have to think about what you're selling in context to those last two. Is it direct or indirect sales? And what phase you're at in that product conversation, in that customer conversation. And that's what really starts to compound and really starts to build in, real institutional weight and leverage to protect your business. Because as we said earlier, your narrative is reality. I can't stress this enough. The story you tell becomes reality. And so a lot of startup founders kind of take that with a grain of salt, but it's true. And you really need to think about this, especially the people that are promoting your business actively or investing in you. This could be mentors. This could be your coworkers. This could be your first 10 employees. This could be your spouses. It obviously could be investors and press. That's the most obvious. But if you're out there framing your business as an AI company, when really it's a chatbot company that's tied to customer service, you need to have a long, hard look at what makes it an AI company. Maybe the thing you're talented at isn't, and maybe you are talented at AI. Maybe you should be selling AI services and say, we sell chatbots as one thing. We also can do, media. So ad targeting AI. So we can help take all of your consumer data and all your first party data and build AI algorithms in media buying software against it. So maybe you're an AI implementation company. It's not going to get you the multiple you want. It's not going to get you this huge product multiple, but it might be a much bigger market. And in emerging markets, services are still a huge, huge, huge market. You've got large management consulting firms, and I'm speaking for the Gulf, that are making over $1 billion a year with 20-point margins. That's $200 million of net profit. I mean, these are spectacular businesses that are worth billions of dollars. So don't, always go to the trendy, don't always go to the buzzworthy thing. And even then, if you're that talented at it, maybe you're an implementer, maybe you're on the services side of it, right? Remember what it is that you are selling. I think this is so important. I think there's an easy way as well to kind of put together your problem statement. Your business is great at X, and it's a massive opportunity, and it's a, $5 billion market globally. And then talk through your narrative. Since the fall of 2020, I should have updated that. We've worked with competitors and seen their market share grow year over year. We've just worked with them on one product, right? You've got more market share, you've got better products, and you've got more pricing power. We think you can scale 400% over the next 8 quarters with our team and consolidate your market position. So that's where, if you're able to say that with conviction and confidence and track record, that's also a great indication of product market fit, right? That's going back to where we talked about, I own my customer, or at least I know my customer better, and I can bundle, I can upsell, right? So that's when we're digging into better products, prices. We can bundle, we can help you consolidate your market. This is really where you start to drive in that pricing power. It's where you start to drive in your team, become experts at the space, and they have kind of that rarefied air and that ability to be able to talk and communicate in a way that is, super specialized, and your customers get on the phone with them and they learn something new every single time. If you're a consumer brand, they're coming onto your platform, and every single time they're on there, they're seeing something new. They're getting a different look. Your prices are better. more selection, faster delivery, a better experience. It's really about kind of that positioning. You've removed, it used to be 10 steps. You removed it down to 2 steps. I know for a fact, I used signature apps, virtual signature apps a ton 10 years ago. I moved here, I stopped using them. Everybody wants a stamp. They want signatures and triplicate. And now over the past 6 months, everyone out here is using virtualized signature all of a sudden. So it's really wild to see what some would say will never happen, and the disruption that has on business and consumer brands and everything else. You've got to really try to find a way to position it with a problem statement and in a way that sets you apart. And it really does start back with, exactly who you're selling to and how you're selling it. Is it direct or indirect? Are you able to go in and, a lot of people, when they talk about product market fit, move into customer acquisition costs, customer lifetime value. I didn't want to go that far today. I think that's a great and useful conversation, but for the purpose of this conversation, it's a little advanced. I think it's much better to have an idea that if you have the ability, for instance, through customer referrals and existing customers to sell, well, then inbound leads and outbound leads are green pasture, right? Your ability to then go and raise money off of your acquisition costs, which is almost nothing because you're getting referrals and everything else. These are great kind of benchmarks to look at in terms of your ability to have product market fit, your ability to look horizontally and say, okay, well, I'm doing well with this product. What's a loss leader to the right, to the left in my category that I can give away? And vice versa in terms of partner sales. I can't stress that enough. There's so many startups that want to work with these large holding companies, and they think, especially in emerging markets, right? You've got large retailers, you've got, large trading houses. They've got all the brands. You think that they're the customer, but really a lot of those companies aren't great at buying things. They're great at selling things. They're phenomenal at reselling things. So why not incentivize them? Why not let them make more money on the sale than you make, but let them sell it to all their other businesses, for instance? These are uncharted territories. A lot of the large holding companies, people don't know, in the Gulf at least, resell for Microsoft, for Adobe, and they don't sell it to consumers. They sell enterprise licenses. Why'd they get into that? Because they were selling it to themselves in the first place. So, really think through that, dig deep and find those angles where you're able to say either we're unique in this, we're one of a kind, we've got an edge, we can do it cheaper, we can do it faster, all the different kind of differentiators. But you've got to find that way. And again, it's the real goal is that you roll it up into that problem statement, how long you've been together, and that kind of elevator pitch that you can give to your customer. That for me is really where product market fit goes from good to great. It goes from maybe difficult to understand or difficult to see to kind of just whacking you over the head. And people say, this is exactly where it is. I want to leave you with something I found online through Canvanizer. And it's an interesting way to look at product market fit if you're early days. And for each kind of way you view it, it's got the characteristics, the problems and needs, the channel, the user experience. You've got kind of a benchmark, or you've got an output on the other side of it. So if you're looking at jobs to be done, which is a really popular thing in terms of framing up your value proposition in your business, you've got the alternatives. What else are people doing? Your problems and your needs. This is like we talked about when talking with C-level executives, which is a huge opportunity. No one does. You've got to do this. Take them to coffee, use the startup card, use the SME card, and just say, I just want 15 minutes of your time. And then what are the key features that come out of that? You absolutely can use a feature to go to market. We've seen it time and time again, but you've also got to platform a lot of times. So it just can't be a feature. You've got to look at, like we talked about, going horizontal. What's the channel? We've listed, 15 different channels tonight. Everything from B2C, B2B, B2B2B, B2B2C. These are great opportunities for you to quickly define, but then what's the value for the channel? Like we talked about earlier, I think you've got to not be greedy if you look at channel marketing and channel sales. And if there are large holding companies, leverage that, use that, dig into that, and find the way to provide value to the channel, because ultimately you own the business. And if you are trading on a platform multiple or something like that, who cares about the commission that they're going to get in year 1 or year 2 or year 3 of selling software? User experience, I think, is fundamental. One of the easiest ways to quickly grab product market fit, like we talked about, is I took something that was 12 steps and I made it 2 or 3, and it's repeatable, it's easy. What are the key metrics that tie into that? Is that bounce rate, right? Is that your conversion? Is it the stickiness or referral? Or this could be every single way, up, down, left, right, across, that you can benchmark metrics. Be open to it in terms of how you collect data and how you gather it. I think this is a great takeaway. Canvanizer is a super useful website. Check it out for product market fit. It's a great place to start. And again, this could you might be a more mature company and you say, I don't need this. This could be a great way to test out a new product that you want to launch, right? You're never too late for it. So with that, I think we're bang on 40 minutes in. Thank you so much. I really want to open it up for questions. I'll go through and look at this and see what questions we've got in the chat. Oh, are we in here? I'm going to stop the sharing. Cool. All right. All right. Do we have any questions? Yeah, the presentation's absolutely able to be shared. They've got a copy, so they punched it up. My presentation was not nearly as fancy as that one. Yeah, it's all available, absolutely. The presentation will be made available at the end. You bet. Does anyone have any questions specific to maybe their business or their market or anything like that? So let me think. So there's one question around marketing spend. Yeah, I think you can definitely do test budgets. There's a lot of research around. It really depends on the business, but let's say you're selling something online. You can optimize landing pages, you can optimize sales funnels, but I would not spend a lot of money to get early traction with marketing. And there's actually a different way. A lot of people get traction for signups just on the idea. So some people talk about product market fit without even having a product. They'll use landing pages to kind of spoof that. You can spend money on that, but yeah, for where I sit, I just wouldn't spend a lot. I would also use test budgets to test different markets. I think that's really interesting as well. And one thing to keep in mind if you are going to do test budgets is 7 days is generally not enough. I'll mean, entrepreneurs like, I ran ads for 2 weeks, it didn't click. Sometimes that's why I recommend smaller budgets. Sometimes you got to run them over 30, 60, 90 days in order to get a real good cross section. Got a question around how do I exactly know I achieved product market fit? I hope we kind of detailed that to some degree. It really depends on the business. It really depends on the vertical, and it really depends on the market you're in and the stage as well, like we talked about. So it's going to be different for everybody. And we've in the presentation gave kind of a loose answer. For me, I think product market fit, especially if it's a customer driven business, is when your customers can't do what they're doing without you. That's always a good sign. Someone starting a new business in personal help, they don't know how to measure its fit. I think in personal help, you've got two large benchmarks you need to look at, and that's going to be referrals, which is a big deal in personal help. And then on the other side, your profitability. You should be able to have really good unit economics in order to be profitable. If you can do those things well, you probably have decent product market fit. So there's a question in the group chat around how to attract clients in this field and to become a good businessman. You know, I really, I think it's different for everybody, but I think when you look at attracting clients and you look at growing a business, it's super important for you to consider what you're passionate about and what you believe in. That doesn't mean you have to be not for profit. That doesn't mean you have to only sell things if you're 100% passionate about them, because passion wanes. But I think that's a good thing for you to start around. You have to really look at the topics and the, you know, industries and the things you believe in and you're passionate about, because that's going to help you when you hit a wall and you have times where you're not as excited for what's ahead and what you're doing. So that's definitely a good thing to keep in mind. All right. I don't know if we have any other questions. Are there any questions from my other panelists, the other organizers?
I believe no. Well, thank you very much. You've provided a very informative presentation, as well as you've answered all questions. And if we still have any questions from our attendees, then this is the time for it. Otherwise, thank you very much. We much appreciate your time.
Great. I got one more from Hassan around products and services in the luxury services and products category. Look, it sounds like, you know, you're hitting a wall, Hassan, in terms of, you know, not finding the fit, but you want to keep doing what you're doing. I think it's important for whoever you're working with to find a way to make sure that you are profitable. And I've battled with this, and it sounds insane, especially if you're an early stage entrepreneur and you're like, of course I should find a way to be profitable. But when you get into raising money and you get into scaling, profitability kind of escapes. And I've had years, I mean, over the last 9 years, we've probably done over 100 million dirhams in sales, which is pretty good for a bootstrapped business. I didn't know anybody when I moved out here. I couldn't speak the language. There were so many disadvantages I had. But there were definitely years where we ran it at a break even or we ran it at a loss. And in the moment, I thought, yeah, this is okay. There's another horizon, or there's something around the corner. And, you know, the entrepreneur's credo is the worst person to lie to is yourself. And I really, really want folks to think about that. You have to kind of be not risk averse, but at least fully prepared for the 10 out of 10 downside in a lot of the big decisions that you make. When you make decisions and you're only thinking about the most optimistic outcome, you're going to back yourself into a corner, and you really need to think about, you know, and be brutally honest with yourself, knowing that the worst person to lie to is yourself. Think about the downside risk in some of these things. The reason product market fit exists, it's such a big idea, is because entrepreneurs will just kind of search in different directions and never really get to where they want to go, or never really achieve a spot where they can take venture investment and be able to scale. So product market fit is kind of an outcome of a lot of those market forces and ideas. And so, really be honest with yourself. It's great that Hassan, you're passionate for luxury and you believe in it, and you see those markets, but I think it's even more important that your time is valued and people pay you what you're worth. So, if you keep hitting a wall, maybe find a tangential business that is in that sector, maybe with a larger business or a holding company where you can go learn it a little bit more and dive deeper and better understand the unit economics, better understand how those markets work together, and then try again to go back out there. But don't give up. Really great to meet everyone tonight. Thank you for your time. I'm honored to have been given this opportunity, this chance. I fundamentally believe that entrepreneurs and SMEs are the answer to a lot of the regions and a lot of emerging markets problems and challenges. And entrepreneurs have the ability to solve a lot. And so what the folks at Think Tech are doing is instrumental in that. And you guys are really lucky to have folks that are investing time and effort and energy and calling in favors with folks like me and our partners at Hub 71 in Abu Dhabi in order to do this. So really think the world of you guys, and thanks again for everything.